Andy, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, I thought, in the spirit of players who could grow and evolve, I'd sit in front of
where you were
this.
at. I thought you were in a safari
Well
out there.
played. He's at a Tommy Bahama restaurant in suburban
That's right,
Cleveland. Yeah. Hey, so who is your first player, major league player, that you think is going to really break out this year?
I'm going to start with Esteury Ruiz of your Oakland A's. And you could say he broke out in a way in his rookie year. He stole 67 bags, after all, set a rookie record in the American League. But he did that with a .305 on-base percentage. You can count on one hand the number of guys in history who have had that many steals with that low of an OBP. So I saw Ruiz here out in the Cactus League the other day. We spoke for a bit about his approach this spring, and he's added some power. He's changed his posture in the box. He's had a long conversation with Ricky Henderson about standing tall in the box. He's also talked to him about base stealing tips as well. He didn't want to give any state secrets when it comes to the base stealing tips, but he did tell me he's trying to stay tall in the box, and he's hitting the ball harder. The A's internal metrics say his hard hit percentage is much higher here this spring. So he's really looked good. They got a crowded camp in the outfield, so I don't think anything's gonna be handed to him. He had about 450 plate appearances last year, but you think about 67 bags with a .305 on base. I mean, if he gets on base at a 350, 360 clip, what's that look like? That could be pretty epic. So he thinks he's got more power in there.
You're losing the headline, man. So Ricky's in camp, and he got a chance to talk to Ricky about stealing and hitting?
Yeah, he did. And he said he never thought he'd even meet Ricky Henderson, let alone get advice from him. So that's a great benefit of being an Oakland A.
That's cool.
Ricky still imparting his words of wisdom.
We always think about Ricky as a stolen base guy. Ricky could hit, too.
Oh, he hit for average, hit for power. Yeah. He did it all. And speaking of power, I know that the next player that you've identified as a breakout candidate is a guy for whom power is the main sell on his game.
Yeah, Spencer Torkelson of the Tigers. Hit 31 home runs last year. That's good production. He was 5% better than the league average in terms of his OPS plus. Perfectly fine, but, not what we expected from a #1 overall pick. So he's a guy who also needs to get on base more. But he's got really good eye. He's got, he selects well in the zone. I do think he's going to draw more walks. Also, last year he had a low, batting average on balls in play. It was about 269. You see there. So probably due for a little better batted ball luck. So I think if he gets on base, improves defensively, to go with that big power, that's going to be a player for the Tigers. Tigers are a really interesting team. AL Central, when we were talking about this list of breakout guys, I could pick out quite a few from the AL Central. There's a lot of ways that division could go this year.
I'm with you on Torkelson, and after the All-Star break, in fact, it happened a little earlier. It was really around June when he changed it and completely turned things around. And I always use I don't always, but the Buck O'Neil line from the Ken Burns baseball documentary. That sound, you close your eyes and that sound.
Yeah.
Torkelson generates that sound. So maybe that 1-1 is what he turns into as soon as this year. I'm with you on him.
I can see it being an all-star year for him.
How do you set the thresholds for Oneil Cruz? I mean, what do we expect from him statistically? He was on the way to such great things before his season was cut short.
Yeah.
How do you assess that?
I don't know, because there's never been anyone like him, right? I mean, I guess we have Ellie De La Cruz now, too. So within the NL Central, we got these two monster shortstop types. But, 6'7", 90-mile-an-hour exit velocity as an average, elite speed. I mean, there's a lot you can work with there. And I was really excited to see him last season because I did think he made some adjustments at the end of 2022. And, of course, he fractured his leg really early. And right in the midst when we were all developing Bucco's fever, they lost Oneil Cruz. So that's another team that, I don't expect them to vie for the division title or anything. But, I look at Oneil Cruz and Jack Sawinski and some guys they have coming, and Paul Skeens, of course, at some point in probably the not-too-distant future in their rotation. I mean, that team could take off in a certain sense. They could be they could be like the Reds last year, and maybe compete ahead of schedule. But Oneil Cruz is a big part of that. And I don't know. I mean, he lost a year of development by breaking his leg last year, and that was really unfortunate. So kind of a wild card there on my list of breakouts. But the tools are so extreme that, you hope to see good things from him.
Well, the one thing, too, I saw him in September when I was out there for Clemente Day. And, excuse me, he was rehabbing. And sometimes when you get injured, you learn how to work out. He had gotten so much bigger, stronger, the work ethic, all that. I'm telling you, I was really impressed. And he could have probably came back last year. And the advantage of a lot of the Latin players, you get a chance to get some reps in winter ball, before you come to spring and before you get ready to take off. So he can make up some of that ground he lost by playing at home in winter.
Hey, your next player that you've identified here also had his season cut short. In fact, he didn't have a season because he got hurt in spring training. What do we expect from Gavin Lux this year?
Yeah, this is another one where I'll take the bet on the talent. It is an interesting dynamic, though. I mean, that's a loaded team. You got the traveling Wilburys super group at the top of the order. So Gavin Lux can kind of just blend in, but they did bring back Kike Hernandez. So that is an X factor in all of this in terms of the playing time. But he's had a couple of miffs out in the field this spring, has Gavin Lux, but I don't think that's a big deal. I think it's that internal clock of having missed a year. That's what spring training is for, is to get back in that groove. But now this is a guy who, batting a low-pressure spot in a loaded lineup, amazing hit tool as a minor leaguer. He was ready, I think, to break out a year ago and before the unfortunate knee injury that cost him all of 2023. But I'm still going to bet on Gavin Lux. I know the Dodgers are too. They could have done some other things at shortstop this year in the midst of their wild winter, and they still could. Willie Adames will still be a trade candidate as the year starts, but they still believe in Gavin Lux, and I do too. I think there's a lot of talent there offensively.
Well, there's so much young talent, as we will see during this breakout series, at the shortstop position in baseball. So they have to really love Gavin Lux, because there's a plethora of shortstops out there that are not going to play. They're going back to the minor leagues. They're too young, or they're not going to get that opportunity. So they really got to love him.
Hey, only because you went there. Favorite traveling Wilbury? Orbison, Petty, Harrison, Lynn, Dillon.
Yeah, well, I'm a Tom Petty guy and a Bob Dylan guy. And I think for the traveling Wilburys, though, I like Dillon the best because he has this sneer. It adds a different kind of vibe to a traveling Wilbury song. Where,
plus, he was traveling like a Rolling Stone.
No wrong answer there. I mean, the ultimate super group. I'm a big George Harrison guy, so that's my answer there. All right, Anthony Castrovince with us on a Thursday. Good stuff, Anthony. Enjoy the rest of your Cactus League travels.